The other thing that, is particularly attractive to people with respect to group health is the fact that you are getting health information that is curated by regulated healthcare professionals that, is evidence-based, that allows you to know how to navigate the healthcare system. So I think when you have both those aspects, you really allow the opportunity for patients to get the support that they need, or the public to get the support that they need with respect to their journey, but also what is the evidence-based information that they need to know in order to navigate the healthcare system, in order to know what it takes to implement lifestyle interventions. Like, there's so many things with respect to health that happen beyond that one-on-one strategy piece. And I think group health is the key solution to that. And I think, to your point, like, when we start to create clarity of what this is, and we can dissect it however else you would like me to go, I think it's so key for people to realize the value of that.
Welcome to the Entrepology podcast. I'm your host, Megan Walker. As a former naturopathic doctor and anthropologist, I align the intersection of personal performance, purpose, and innovative thinking in badass women working to change the world as entrepreneurs and go-getters. Entrepology is the study and science of what makes an entrepreneur think, feel, and perform in a path compelled by a vision for helping others, solving problems, while building a life on your own terms. Together, we are exploring the health, mindset, and strategies that distinguish the world's best entrepreneurs. This is the Entrepology Podcast. Welcome to the Entrepology Podcast. This is episode 222. I'm Dr. Megan Walker, former naturopathic doctor turned anthropologist, exploring the intersection of mindset, high performance health, and entrepreneurship. Today, I am joined by one of my very dear friends and colleagues, Dr. Michell Peris. And she and I sat down to have what I'm calling a special edition episode where we are exploring new and novel approaches to healthcare. And before everyone goes, I'm not sure this is going to be relevant to me, I'm just a female entrepreneur. I'm not in the health space. I'm not looking for more information about these pieces. What you are also is someone who elects officials who spend more than half of our tax revenue dollars on healthcare. And what I really want to actually do is I want to open up a conversation about how entrepreneurship and outside the box thinking actually can lend solutions to a healthcare system and to a line item that is costing us lives, costing us money, and I think costing us potential in our own health. So this is really a conversation today about getting outside the box. It's about the benefit of entrepreneurial thinking, and it is an opportunity to explore an incredible healthcare model that Michell has developed, looking at group health and its capacity to change people's lives profoundly and in a highly economically efficient manner. Michell is going to blow you away with her mission to support women and the model of care that she has developed in her practice. It is truly my honor to welcome Michell to the podcast. Michell Peris, welcome back to the Entrepology Podcast.
I'm so excited to be back.
Well, thank you for being here. And I'm just going to be really upfront with everyone and share, Michell and I, Dr. Michell Peris and I, had this opportunity to chat before we came on board a few days ago about really what our intention was around this interview. And we are recording this at a time where we are both living in a province that is under a provincial lockdown to manage a healthcare crisis that predominantly at this point is about hospital capacity. And the lens through which I want to direct this conversation is both on the granular and big picture. So we're talking about the disruption of healthcare today. And this is not a conversation that needs to uniquely be held by practitioners. This is actually a conversation that is relevant to all of us. It's relevant to all of us because we are currently having policy imposed upon us that is a reflection of a stressed healthcare system. We are also voters and individuals engaged in a civic process who get to choose leaders
depending on their lens and vantage point with respect to healthcare. So we actually have a huge amount of power as healthcare consumers, not only to make choices around our own healthcare, but actually to make choices around leadership whose policy ideas lend themselves to sustainability within healthcare. And I think the thing that we're united in right now is an understanding that the current system is entirely unsustainable. It's unsustainable because we have chronic disease escalating at a level that we can't effectively manage. And as soon as we apply the pressure of an acute condition on top of it, the system is crumbling and falling apart. And we have long said as naturopathic doctors that we in part hold the key to be able to address that preventative component. But for you as voters and as healthcare consumers to understand that, I think there's really an opportunity for us to delve into a deeper conversation today. So what I want to have happen in this conversation, I really wanted to set this up effectively because I want people to know that this is actually content that's relevant to all of us. The lens through which I really want everyone to appreciate this conversation is I think there is a time and place, and we are in that time and place for disruption and entrepreneurship and innovative ideas to be brought to the table in our downstream conversations with respect to healthcare. And there really isn't anyone that I can think better positioned to share this conversation with me today than the one and only Dr. Michell Peris, because she herself has been an innovator in the naturopathic functional medicine health space in her utilization of group programming to deliver better health outcomes. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Michell. I'd love for you to share with my listeners a little bit about the awesome stuff that you have been up to as a creative entrepreneur and clinician, so we can have a better understanding of what you bring to the conversation.
Well, thank you so much. I love everything that you have to say. I just could listen to you all day. I think you host really important conversations that can shift the way things are going. And so I thank you for that. And I appreciate that. So about 4 years ago, I had this audacious dream of opening my own clinical space and leveraging a different model of health, really looking at how we could make group health more successful. We could make certain aspects of fundamentals with respect to health easy for the community at large to access, making sure that what we had to say, because what we had to say as naturopathic doctors was so important, feel less threatening, more inviting, less intimidating, right? Like if you go one-on-one, we're a little nervous about what that might necessarily mean with respect to how we want to change and engage in our own health transformation. But can we deliver certain information that was simple, essential for people to understand so that by the time they got into the one-on-one visit, they were having very high-level strategic conversations? And so through, we'll call it like failing forward, trial and error, launching a program, we created the Wild Collective, and it had an incredible interest in our local community. There were women who were curious about what we had to say and how we were going to disrupt the model a little differently and make it exciting and fun, and really look at it from a lens of like, what if we had social connection? What if we had other aspects that are pertinent to health transformation? What would that look like at the end of that? And that's where we really started to discover that when women had the support needed and the empowered healthcare information, they were radically empowered to take action in their own health. They were able to understand what role they played in the actual co-creation of health and who to speak to in certain conversations and what questions to ask. And that was really exciting. And so, with much support of you, we started to scale this idea. We thought, well, if this is working so well in our local community, how could we have more women access this type of care? Because what we started to see that our one-on-one visits started to be more valuable. Patients didn't need us as often in that capacity. We started making things more efficient with respect to our business model. How do we help other clinicians do that? And that's exactly what we did. We built this done for you group health program that walked you through step by step and had the fundamentals that if we're speaking about women's health, every clinician could implement in their own office and be doing the work that they loved. We got into this to be of service, to make sure that women felt empowered and informed and excited about their healthcare. And we could now actually, instead of helping 20 women per launch, we're, in the upwards of 2,000 every launch, which is really exciting. So now Wild Collective is a 10-module program that clinicians can buy. And we have, I think, about 46 clinics in Canada and US that are effectively doing this. And what we were able to observe, not only is it really exciting from a patient perspective or community member perspective, a member of the public, is that we also are able to, I just lost my thought. Hold on. So what was really cool about scaling this and looking at it from both lenses. So not only we're from a public perspective able to amplify and empower women's health and make sure that they had access to this fundamental information, is that we were also helping to support clinicians have an ascension model, have a different way of offering healthcare that, one, helped them through a pandemic where, one-on-one care initially dropped off because we were all scared and none of us had certainty. And I understand the want to pull back and not be so focused on your health. So we created some safety, some innovative ways in which clinicians could be supporting their clinicians in their practice, and also preserving them in how they were engaging in their practice. Like, it was just this beautiful intersection of how we could more generously serve the public while also taking care of ourselves and making sure that everyone was getting the information that they needed without us having to be in front of people all the time, repeating ourselves over and over and over again.
There's huge benefit on the clinician side to leveraging a group program. And we talk about this all the time, how exciting it is to witness the transformation of individuals who are in a group program. I still feel like there is this challenge from the average person when you're like, oh my gosh, you would love this group program we have with respect to your diabetes management, or like a women's health program, where they're like, no, thank you. Like, I will come into your office and I will talk to you. I don't want to be in a group. And what I would really love to do is just I just want to address head on some of the misconceptions that people have around what group health actually looks like and what happens, and just sort of like peel the veil back a little bit so people can have a glimpse of the type of transformation and experience that we're talking about.
Yeah, because there's some obvious barriers there for people. So there's a couple of things I think we can do to mitigate that. But yes, anyone, especially if you have historically not enjoyed social settings, if they are intimidating, overwhelming, if you've experienced, you've had a negative experience, you're certainly not looking at like, oh, here's this exciting, health offer where I can go hang out with people and listen to their problems. I think there is like
talk about my problems. Yeah.
I think there's like this misconception about what that might look like. And that is a real barrier. So we do our best to, ensure that we eliminate all narratives, limiting beliefs and narratives up front. So we really do talk about who we are and what we do and how we show up and serve. And I think when we face that head on, then we can no longer let ourselves, continue to believe these limiting beliefs that hold us back from reaching our potential. So, some of the things that we hear, one is like, yeah, do I have to show up and share all my stuff? So especially I think if you have, group programs talking about diabetes or specific health conditions, I feel like that might even be a bit labeling. So we were very careful to be like, not have anything specific, which I think was exciting for women, is like, how do you take your power back? So I coach a lot of other clinicians about this too, is like, when you pick your name, like make sure it's consumable and easy and exciting for people who are wanting to select that. Like, I really think we have to take an empowering aspirational lens to this to help people understand what we're trying to achieve here. I find with women too, part of the barriers is age. Like, I've said this recently and it helped me kind of come to my own conclusion. It's usually not a lack of time or resources. It's that, it can be intimidating to be hanging out in a group when you're uncertain of what that might look like. And so I think group health face on for us means that we are spending some time sharing, but sharing from a very, very high level standpoint. And I think the value in that is that we start to actually see that the sisterhood is medicine, that the community is actually the secret sauce to our success. And when we hear the normalcy of what we're going through, it really helps us feel like we're not alone on this journey. So no one's sharing anything that they're not comfortable with. It's a very high level conversation that has very much an intention behind why we're having these conversations. And it's to help people see things from a different lens or have clarity. Also, when we're talking about things that may have happened to us or things that we might be experiencing, even if it's a health condition, we might have stress, shame, guilt around all of that. When we start to give it voice, we take our power back. It starts to not hold us the way that it was holding us before when we weren't saying anything. So I think there's so much power to that, connection, community, conversation piece that has really accelerated healing with respect to patients in our clinic alone. It was like when they actually started to hear, one, that they didn't have to hold on to that anymore, two, that they were just like the woman in the waiting room beside them. They just didn't know how to access that kind of camaraderie with respect to what they were going through in the journey. And then the other piece is how do we handle other barriers? And I work specifically with women. And one is, really talking about leadership, aging, and our opinions about that. So I think we've done a really good job of handling those conversations, because we're definitely seeing I always had this dream of having it be a very eclectic group, a very diverse group of women of various cultural backgrounds, age, diversity in every capacity. And we're starting to see that happen. So you see that we're getting better with our language and how we're articulating what our values are and what the contribution of a community looks like. I think the other thing that, is particularly attractive to people with respect to group health is the fact that you are getting health information that is curated by regulated healthcare professionals, that, is evidence-based, that allows you to know how to navigate the healthcare system. So I think when you have both those aspects, you really allow the opportunity for patients to get the support that they need, or the public to get the support that they need with respect to their journey, but also what is the evidence-based information that they need to know in order to navigate the healthcare system, in order to know what it takes to implement lifestyle interventions. Like, there's so many things with respect to health that happen beyond that one-on-one strategy piece. And I think group health is the key solution to that. And I think, to your point, like when we start to create clarity of what this is, and we can dissect it however else you would like me to go, I think it's so key for people to realize the value of that. And if community is done right, then you leave that session feeling far more connected and inspired by the beauty of humanity than when you walked in. And that is the key to a successful group program.
I had this patient, and I remember sitting across from me, and she had this deep sense of shame that she had started taking antidepressant medication. She was like, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to go there. I was trying all the lifestyle things. And she sat there for a long time. And I said, what's missing? Because notwithstanding any kind of chemical imbalance, that wasn't the nature of the conversation. There's something behind it. I was like, where I was like, you're doing all the things. She's like, yeah, but there's one thing I'm not doing and I don't know how to do it. And I said, what is that? And she said, I'm 40 years old and I don't know how to make friends. I don't know how to make friends who are in the same place and in the same mindset and with the same vision for growth and with the same respect for my body. I don't know how to find those people because I don't want to sit in the park and drink wine and complain about my husband. That's not the kind of camaraderie I'm looking might work well for other people. We're in the middle of a pandemic, so that's behavior's totally fine right now. But she was like, I just want people who want to encourage me to grow, and I don't know how to find them. And it's leaving me in this deep state of anxiety and depression. And it's a void my husband can't fill for me. My kids can't fill for me. My job, all those things are great. I don't know how to make like-minded friends at this stage of my life. And as she was sharing the story, I was like, I can't fix that problem for you. I'll be your friend. But like, that wasn't actually what she needed. She didn't need a doctor being like, I'm going to be your friend. She needed other women to be sitting in a circle with her to acknowledge how she was feeling. And for everyone to just come, like, sometimes it's not about the solution. It's actually just about the being and the community and having those faces. And as we face an epidemic of loneliness and mental health crises and individuals who are deeply curious around this notion of how do I take personal responsibility, radical responsibility for my health on the other side of a pandemic, I think there is a unique opportunity to leverage group programming to address that. That wasn't a question. That was just a statement, because I think it's a perfect example and an example that is duplicated millions of times over globally, certainly within North America, where this model of care delivery can actually handle a huge amount of the burden that we are facing that is sitting on the shelf waiting for us to come up for a solution for. Michelle, I'm wondering if you have some thoughts around, we can see how this works in a private care setting because we can just implement it. But what would it take in your mind and in your estimation for us to start to implement group programming within the broader healthcare system? What stakeholders, what burden of evidence, like what do you see as barriers to us starting to implement this in a broader context? It's
a loaded question because I feel overwhelmed.
Oh, really?
At the thought of it.
Michelle, please solve our healthcare crisis. You've got about a minute.
I think there's some really promising literature coming out in the US on how they are handling that on a broader scale, which I think is exciting. And it has incentivized me to look at that at our even little microcosm here in Oakville about how we do that. Because you see the efficiencies of it. You see the efficiencies of, being able to kill two birds with one stone, for lack of a better term. It's so efficient because what people need, and to your point of your brilliant patient who articulated that so beautifully, and as we are clinicians for longer, we start to hear the nuances behind of what they're actually presenting with. And you realize that what brings people to our office is usually much simpler than we once originally thought. Like when I became a clinician, it was like guns a-blazing. What was my arsenal? How was I going to help this person? What was I going to prescribe? What kind of like massive plan? And then as you grow into your confidence as a clinician and you start to be able to like decipher what patients are really saying they need, you realize that there's a lot of things that are very, very simple with respect to lifestyle intervention, with respect to whatever challenge that presents itself. So, I know that there is some really good data like centering parenting in the US where doctors are actually hosting group visits where there is charting, there is, one-on-one time with the clinician, but there are so many aspects of this group visit that are taking place in a collective where then you realize, and it's actually so empowering for those engaging in that healthcare experience that you see that they're solving their own problems, which, I'm going through that. Like you think about breastfeeding women. It's such a palpable situation for anyone who's been through that, because the isolation, the confusion, the overwhelm, the guilt, the shame, all the things that are going on. And when you put those women with each other, you just see them like move through their trauma and their challenges. And not only can they have really high level conversations with a clinician or a health coach, they can also get that one-on-one care. So I know that there is some beautiful ways in which we can execute this, and we need to start seeing this happen, because to your point at the beginning of this conversation, with growing levels of chronic disease, we have one acute situation happen and the system crumbles. Like, we need to think of a more innovative way to solve the problem, to make our healthcare efficient and way more focused on integrative care, so that if we were efficient, we could alleviate a system that could handle an acute situation, and not leave us in where we are at right now, trying to like figure out, backwards, like how do we fix this? Like we're paddling upstream, trying to figure out how to alleviate a system and provide support. And I think group health as a healthcare implementation in the broader scope of things, you're right. We're in this like really privileged situation where we can just like tomorrow say, like, I'm going to launch this group program and you guys can pay out of pocket. So we really need to start thinking about how do we make this more accessible to everybody. And that's going to be looking at how do we get coverage for this? How do we help people access this? And really, you could see that would be a model that worked for everyone, because that also would be more efficient in terms of how we're paying our OHIP practitioners as well, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like this fits a need and fits a gap within the traditional information dissemination model of medicine. And one thing I've watched a lot of, I'm going to say our colleagues, so advocates of preventative health, have had a lot to say lately on the benefits of exercise and healthy eating and strategic supplementation as a tool to protect ourselves from ongoing circulating viruses. My challenge with this is I feel like in addition to that conversation, there's a ton of blame being placed on individuals. Well, you know what, guys? I'm giving you all this information. Why you can't lift kettlebells and eat well is beyond me. Like there's a lot of anger and vitriol behind some of this key messaging as well. And I feel like there is a lack of acknowledgement that in the history of physicians delivering information, it's not the information that people are usually lacking. It's the appropriate social context. It is the implementation plan. It is, how do I carve out 20 minutes? How much space do I, like, I have had so many patients who ask me questions where I'm like, really? Like, the thing that held you back from swinging your kettlebell was you didn't know how much room you needed in your basement. You didn't want to buy them before. Like, it is, everyone processes that information differently. I don't actually feel like there's a shortage of health information. I also don't feel like there's a shortage of individuals who want to take radical responsibility. I think what we are missing is a model to bring those two pieces together. Is group programming the best way to do that? Are there other models that you have played with that you think can bridge that gap? Or am I totally off base, which is also quite possible?
No, now I see the lens in which you write things, and I agree with you what you're saying so beautifully. I think I felt so overwhelmed by the landscape in the last little bit. It's almost made me voiceless because it's such a volatile place right now. It's like you lie on these two extreme sides. And you're right. Like what is the solution? There's no shortage of health information. If you want to find the information that you desire in order to take responsibility for your health, there's no shortage of that. So that information is there. Do I think group health is the solution? 1,000%. You could also, much to your point, not that I've implemented it in my own clinic, but makes sense, is having like, a health coach help with a membership site. Like we need to fill the gaps. So to your point, we know who to reach out to when something's going on. We know where to go for acute care. We know that naturopaths and integrative practitioners fill a really great void in preventative and ongoing care. Those are still strategic sessions. Those are still like that one-on-one high level. Where do people go and this has always been my problem too, was because you feel dissatisfied in your own practice, right? You create this beautiful individualized plan. You've had 90 minutes, very passionate, throwing my mic around. You've had 90 minutes with this patient to hear their story, understand the root cause of their dis-ease. You understand all of that. You send them off with this beautiful plan that it, considers the kettlebells, that understands that greens is so important in your smoothie. And yet they show up 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, and they feel so bad about themselves because they haven't been able to execute. The solution has always been support. The solution has always been group health and how we help people in between. Because like I said, I say this all the time. It's like people will actually tell me in my one-on-one space, like, I feel safe here. I believe your unicorn dreams for me. Like, I can be gluten-free. I can do all the things. But then I go back to my life where my new values aren't supported. I am resonating at a different level. I'm adopting new health opinions that may not measure or be in alignment with my current family's or friends' belief system. Therefore, now I feel isolated and I need support. I need to be with like-minded individuals who are going to hold space for me while I ongo this transformation, because it's important to me. And so when we see the landscape the way that it is, and I agree, I'm choosing to use my voice very differently, where I feel the frustrations everyone's feeling, but I want to be solution focused. And I think the way through that is through showing up generously with love, with information, and making sure people have the support they need in order to transform, to actually take that health information and do something with it.
Yeah, so perfectly put. And I want to be really clear. I am not against people taking radical responsibility for their health, because like rewarding people with donuts after they get their vaccine, like I'm beating my head against the wall with the messaging that sends out into the world. But our model of care is also a mechanism of care. And I think we need to be really deliberate in our examination of the model as integrative practitioners, but also in the traditional system. The number one line item for us as taxpayers when we are looking at how governments spend our money is on healthcare, and having a whole bunch of individuals that are all delivering individual care in a reactive capacity. If this was a business, we'd all be like, oh my gosh, like how do we address the root cause of the problem here? Because just patching together the machinery to keep our business afloat, this is a terrible use of resources, and this is going to explode. This is going to explode in a backwards context for us. So yes, we have so much to offer as naturopathic doctors, as integrative practitioners, to the system at large. I actually think one of the biggest gifts that we could provide is research and data around how our model can improve care, and you are leading the charge on that. I'm wondering, Michelle, if you can speak directly to the model of the business model of integrative practitioners, and what offering a group program can do in terms of shifting the landscape of what your career looks like monetarily, in terms of changing up the challenge and the way you get to deliver care. What does this look like for practitioners?
Yeah, so that was the part that became particularly fascinating to me, because as many of us do, there comes a point where you get to capacity and you are staying in a model that exchanges time for money. And it becomes inefficient because you can't scale and help as many people as you desire as you got into this. And you find so many inefficiencies with how you're delivering that. So we had to think about, how do we make this more efficient? How do we make this, it was beneficial in both ways. How do we monetize something that helped, ensure that doctors were being paid efficiently, but how do we also make healthcare costs more affordable to the public? And group health was one beautiful way in which we were able to successfully do that. And so we went from, having an hourly rate, seeing patients one-on-one, and I don't know if you want me to give exact numbers, I'll let you tell me that if you would like me to, but to then actually scaling our impact by taking what are our patients' most common questions, pain points, concerns, lack of clarity, and saying it one time, and now basically tripling our hourly rate. And that works really well as a clinician, and that works really well as a business model where there can be many associates launching the same program. And that helps, everybody benefits from that model. It is financially a very successful model for a couple of reasons. One is it's way more efficient in time. Because you can offer it at a certain rate, it also allows our health information to be more affordable to the community at large, which I love, because it feels like an act of service. It feels like our generous offer in which we're able to deliver the most essential information to the public without having to charge them 20 hours worth of our time, what that would cost one-on-one. The other thing is that allows for you to diversify your offering. So there are different ways in which you can start to bill for your time, which allows you time freedom and efficiency that I love. I'm going to let you ask me if you want to know more specifics. I'm being very general.
No, I mean, we can talk about the number piece. Here's the thing I overwhelmingly hear from practitioners is, one, I just want to help people.
Yeah.
And two, Megan, I hear what you're saying, that I should actually charge more for my one-on-one visits. And frankly, most people need to, because they actually haven't accounted for the cost of care delivery in their one-on-one practice. But when I do that, my care is no longer accessible to people. So how do I account for that? Which is an absolutely fair question, because what we should not be doing is creating a care model for the 1%. This is a beautiful example of this idea that I talk about all the time, that we help more people, not by lowering our fees, but by innovating our offer. So one, I'm wondering if you can just actually share on a comparative level what it would cost for someone to participate in a group program versus seeing you for the same amount of time.
Yeah.
One-on-one, because I think it clearly illustrates that piece.
Yeah. So we currently charge $550 to join Wild Collective, which is 20 hours with a facilitator. Typically, it is a naturopathic doctor sitting in that leadership position in that group program. For 20 hours at my new rate would cost you $6,000 for 20 hours to work one-on-one with me. So it certainly is so cost effective to be in group health. You can break that down to like a monthly cost. You can break that down to a daily cost. It's cheaper than a tall pike. Like it's a no-brainer. And you think about how we, choose to spend our money to actually hang out with like-minded individuals and have very high level conversations, feel support, get the information we need. I mean, that is such a worthy investment on how people choose to spend their money. And it really is, when we actually see now from the facilitator side, them have the opportunity to leverage this and leverage their time. And you see them be empowered through this experience, and they see the efficiency, so much so that so many of our facilitators are disrupting their whole model of practicing. Like they just know that group health is more efficient. So I think that's, like, what is the efficiency of seeing me for 20 hours one-on-one versus getting the benefit of hanging out in a group model? It's unbelievable.
Well, the other piece, when I talk to practitioners who are delivering this type of model, and if it sounds like I'm trying to sell it, I just want to be really overt. I am absolutely trying to sell this. I am not, but not just group programming. I am selling, like, how do we deliver care in an online space? How do we integrate health coaches? How do we, I'm not just selling group programming. I am selling there is like 2% of our population that probably needs to see us in a one-on-one context, and every other type of patient interaction actually is ripe for innovation. That's what I'm selling. Like I'm selling, get outside the box of how we've always done it and think about care differently. So I just want to acknowledge my bias. If people are perceiving it, it is like exploding out of me that I am selling new models of care. I think it's super, super important that we address our model as a mechanism for change in people's health. The other piece that I was sharing there is that in speaking to practitioners who are delivering group programming, the overwhelming message they share with me when we talk about it is, one, I have to get out of one-on-one practice because I almost feel guilty about how much better the results are when I deliver group care versus one-on-one. Like, I can't come close to the level of euphoria that people are experiencing moving through this program and gathering with like-minded women. And it's not, in fairness to the practitioners, this isn't actually about how good the practitioner is at facilitating. It's actually about bringing together a group of like-minded individuals, like I mentioned with my patient before, who all get to sit and hold space for each other and just acknowledge what's happening in their lives and the similarities and the fact that they shouldn't feel shame and that they're not alone. Like, that is super powerful medicine. I'm not doing a good job today with my questions, but I will share that it's a Michelle's like, you're correct. You are not doing well with your questions. No, I love but it's that powerful. It's that powerful as a tool.
It's that powerful. I think it really is. I'm glad you've been so transparent about it. And you have been for years. Because for years you've been saying we need to disrupt the model, and probably to your benefit, this sounds terrible, but the most brilliant thing that happened was a global pandemic in that sense, that there was an instantaneous disruption. And now there was this beautiful opportunity for innovation, because not only did we have coaches like you and new ideas about how to bring this to light, but we also had an opportunity where patients and the public were willing to engage in healthcare in a different way. And we're at this beautiful crux of like, where do we go from here? Because you're so right. As I was mapping this out, planning to talk to you, like 95% of what we have to offer is so simple, and everyone just needs to know it. So we need to leverage that information. We need to get it in the online space. We need to get it in group health, because it is inefficient use of everyone's time to be talking about that in the strategic setting. And then that allows us to actually do the important, complex work one-on-one, and everybody benefits, and it's worthy of the investment in time, because patients are getting the time that they need to talk about strategy and not hydration. And the clinician is paying themselves accordingly to actually, understand all the pieces that are involved in one-on-one care.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
And it's a rare thing, actually, where we have innovation that satisfies everybody's needs all at the same time. And if you're reading between the lenses on this isn't just about group care. This is about, let's get outside the box, because the way we did it before, no one really won. Patients didn't really get the outcome because they ran out of money before they got to the end of care. Practitioners didn't win because their expenses far exceeded the revenue that they were bringing in. Bigger clinic models didn't work because no one charged themselves what they should be actually charging for the cost. So what you did is you just actually made a bigger problem, not a scaled problem. There were so many challenges with the model that we were delivering before. And so group programming is a portion of what we can do. And it is a portion of the way we could be doing it outside the box moving forward. And I would venture to guess that if all of us moved outside the box, if all of us put on this lens of innovation, there are solutions to the problems that we are seeing clinically that we haven't even thought of. But if our collective intention is to acknowledge, geez, the old way we did it wasn't working that well, and there's this new opportunity to leverage our model as a mechanism for healing, I actually think we all have the capacity to be incredible leaders on a new frontier and way of delivering healthcare. And Michelle, I can't thank you enough for leading the charge on that, because that's exactly what you were done. You've been courageous enough to step outside the box. You gave it a try. And then you said, now that I know that it works, how do we blow it up? Like, you didn't just say, how do I keep this in a nice, tidy little box in my clinic? You went, how can we actually start to scale this so that we not only make it accessible to more patients and to more women, but to more clinician entrepreneurs, so they have an opportunity to thrive and flourish and see results in their practice as well. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for saying that.
I want to use this as a place to transition our interview, because this is, as much as anything else, an example of entrepreneurship in action. And it's an example of how entrepreneurial thinking can solve big picture problems. But that means we still have to take you through the ringer of addressing our traditional KPIs. So just like we have them in our business, I believe we have them in how we live our lives as well. So my first question for you, Dr. Michell Peris, is this. What is your most recommended book of all time?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a good question. Can I give you 3?
You can, because it's an entrepreneurial podcast and there are no real rules.
Okay, so I would say the book early on that really started to shift my mindset and really allowed me, and I remember early in practice that I recommended this to like all my patients, was The Saint, the Surfer, and CEO by Robin Sharma. And it was just like a very simple way to look at mindset. It really shifted the way that I saw things. Then we'll take it to, and everyone's going to know I'm going to say this, but when we started launching Wild Collective and really talking about women reclaiming their wild and understanding divine feminine, the Women Who Run with Wolves has been highly influential in how I conduct myself as a clinician, as a facilitator, as a woman who advocates and finds her voice and is bravely, moving through that space. That book has been so instrumental. And I think the book that is helping me out the most right now is A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. I used to have a poster on my wall in high school of like key lessons from The Woman Who Runs with Wolves. So
of course you did.
I love that. I love that you say that. What's your favorite health hack?
Oh gosh. Okay. I'll give you 2.
Michelle's not good with rules. That's what we need to see here.
I'm really not good with rules. I would say the 2 that I love to talk about most and get the most attention is I really love cold hydrotherapy. I'm getting my cold plunge this summer and I'm so excited about it. So cold hydrotherapy is something I've been diligent with for the last year. It shifts my mindset. It gets me my breathing right. It gets my mind right. It's one way I can just get back into being enthusiastic about life, which is so key that I find that. And the other one is for sleep. I mouth tape, and it's radically transformed my sleep and the way I wake up and start my day. And I think people should know about it. So I want to talk about those 2 things.
Okay, amazing. Normally this is rapid fire, but quick pause. What are you getting for your cold plunge? Like inside or outside?
Outside. So we're getting a hot tub delivered very soon. And then we're going to have a cold plunge right beside it. And I'm going to be able to do my own like water spa in my backyard. I'm pumped.
Okay, amazing. I am coming to visit. And then what do you use for your mouth taping?
I use micropore tape that you use in IV lounges. It costs about $1. You can buy it at pharmacies. You can buy like lip shaped tape if that's your jam. Like there are ways to do it, but it honestly, I don't think I knew how much I was mouth breathing at night, and I have an Oura ring and tracking my deep sleep and the way that it has really shifted my alertness, my readiness for the day, and my ability to like be enthusiastic has been directly correlated to good quality sleep. So
super cool. Mm-hmm. How would you define your purpose?
I would define my purpose as it's the reason I get up every day and was willing to overcome burnout to find my passion again. My mission, my purpose is to help women reclaim their wild, to know that they are worthy, and that when they are empowered with the right information, that they are unstoppable forces for leadership in their own world. And that we all, once we have that level of awareness, we all take that forward to help the community at large.
Absolutely love it. And finally, entrepreneurism. Are we born this way, or do we learn to become entrepreneurs?
I think I was born this way. I think it can go either way, but this is rapid fire and I'm terrible at it. But I'm going to say I think I was born this way, but I'll also say I was raised in an entrepreneurial family, and we had very entrepreneurial driven conversations at the dinner table that I highly valued. And with the situation that we're in, I am strongly considering helping my children work on their own businesses, which has been inspired by you. And making sure that my children get that same kind of information, because I think it's invaluable. So take that for a while.
Absolutely love it. Dr. Michell Peris, where can I send people to learn more about the work that you are up to in this world, both clinicians and the wild women who are after what you are doing?
Yeah. So mostly I'm on Instagram. You can follow me at Dr. Michell Peris, and we have a Wild Collective Instagram page too that you can go follow. I'll make sure you have that for the show notes. And michelleperis.com, you can find all that information. So I'd love to connect.
Amazing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Entrepology podcast. This is obviously something I am incredibly passionate about. And it's not just my ideas or ideas like we heard from Dr. Michell. It's also your ideas. I'd love to hear from you as innovative, outside the box thinkers. What ideas do you have that can help move the needle on better health? Not the specific tactics, but what is a model that we can start to deploy within our broader system to transform and shift the health of so many people? We're carrying on this conversation over in our Facebook group, the Entrepology Collective, and you can hit me up on Instagram where we are taking an instant poll around ideas related to community medicine and innovative ideas to support our healthcare system. This was a special edition episode. We're going to be digging in to solutions and entrepreneurial solutions to broader societal challenges over the next few weeks. It's an area I'm particularly interested in. If you've got ideas about episodes you want to hear, you can absolutely hit me up in my DMs on Instagram or over in the Entrepology Collective. As always, I am Megan Walker, wishing you an amazing week ahead, and we'll see you again